All right, welcome ladies and gentlemen. In this video, I'm going to show you how stupidly simple it is to make a graph on Google Sheets and to get all the information you need from it in order to complete the first lab report. So I've opened up Google Sheets and I've already entered in my information from that I would have from my copper and brass lab. Title the axes, you don't necessarily need to do that, but what you do need to do, what is very, very important, is to put the stuff that you know is going to be in your x-axis in the first column. So I know that mass of copper is going to be on my x-axis. Notice, by the way, that this is not, I am not writing in, stock, 1 to 2, 1 to 4, 1 to 8. No. I'm writing in the actual legitimate numbers, and I was using people's data from last year, so this was some lab groups data from previous years. Enter in the actual mass of copper in each of your serial dilutions. And then in the next column over, that's where you want your y-axis stuff. So I know that absorbance is going to be on the y-axis, so I'm putting it in the second column. You can enter them in inverted, but then you have to select them in the correct order. It's just a little bit easier if you always do your x-axis stuff in the first column and your y-axis stuff in the second column. So I entered in the data. You'll want to enter in the data. In order to make the graph, all you do is select the data. Super hard, right? Just select the data, and then you're going to go to Insert, and then Chart. You go to Insert Chart, and then there's your graph. But it's not the graph that we want, so you have to do a little bit of fixing to get it to be the graph that we want. But notice that literally that's kind of all you had to do. Select the data, hit Insert Chart, and then boom, you have a graph. The rest is just finesse. So to get the type of graph that we want, I'm first of all going to go to Chart Type. I don't want a bar graph. It will always start you off with a bar graph. We don't want a bar graph. I'm going to scroll past the line graphs, even though you might be really tempted by them. And the reason that I'm going to scroll past them is that they actually will have two lines on them. In this case, one for the x-axis data, one for the y-axis data. We don't want two lines. We only want one line because we want that combination of both x and y. So I'm going to scroll down, and for us in this class, we are always going to be selecting scatter. A scatter plot is basically just saying that you have a combination of two values. One is the x value, one is the y value, and then you plot them accordingly. Notice, by the way, that it's actually already given me a title, which isn't a bad title, but I'm going to change the title later. And so this is looking pretty good, right? This is basically what we want. But I want to make it a little bit better. So now I'm going to go into Customize right here. And here's where you can do a lot of the finessing of the graph. So first up, Chart Title. I don't like that title, so I'm going to say Standardization Curve of Copper. So I know that that's what it is. That's the point of it. And here is also where I can add labels to my x-axis and my y-axis. So first up is my x-axis. What's being graphed on my x-axis? X-axis is grams of copper. And the y-axis is absorbance. Okay, cool. So now that has appropriate titles. That's good. You always want to have titles. I like to then go down to grid lines. I like to add in grid lines because it doesn't add in really small ones. So to both the vertical axis and the horizontal axis, I think it's a little bit easier to look at the graph. For me, it makes a little bit more sense if I do that. And then also, I'm a little uncertain. It looks like my graph isn't really extending all the way back to 0, which in this case, because the grams of copper are so small, I am going to go into horizontal axis, in this case, put a minimum value of 0 here. And notice that that just does, in fact, give me an origin on the graph where I didn't have one before. That's not really super necessary, but it's more, to me personally, I think the graph looks a little nicer that way. And just showing you, like, you can do so much stuff with this. But the really big thing that we want, because our graph is looking pretty good right now, the big thing that we want is a trend line, right? We want a trend line that connects all these and that gives us an equation. So this is also going to be under Customize, and it's going to be under Legend. Okay, Legend right here. Nope, sorry, lied. Series. It's under Series. And right here, trend line. Under series, if you click trend line, then boom, you get a line of best fit. Now, it is a linear line because in this case the data is definitely linear, but you can adjust this. You could do exponential or logarithmic if you needed. This is a linear line, so we're a linear graph, so we're going to keep it as linear. So now we have a line that a best fit that connects everything, which is great. But don't we want to actually know the equation for that line so that then we can interpolate data from it? Because that's the whole point of this lab, right? Make this standardization curve and then use the curve to get information about the brass. So that's going to be under where it says label. You're going to change it from none to use equation. And then, oh, look right there, right on the graph, suddenly you have an equation for the trend line. Now, because this is a linear graph, the equation is in y equals mx plus b format. It is in linear format. So this equation is really saying y equals 0.334x plus 0.0133. So it's giving you a y equals mx plus b equation, which you can then use to take a y value of your absorbance of your brass. So you'd plug in your absorbance as a y value, plug that number in for the brass sample, set it equal to 0.334x plus 0.0133, and then solve for the x value to figure out how many grams of copper were in that sample. And then the nice thing is once you save this, once you make this, you can just copy it and paste it into your lab report. So you don't actually need to send me the separate file for the sheet stuff. You can just put the graph right in. So super easy. It is super easy to make graphs on sheets. And I learned in Excel, and basically Google Sheets are sort of the cheap knockoff version of Excel. So there's a lot of similarities. So I hope this helps you in making the graph, and we'll be definitely making plenty of graphs this year. So you'll be using this again.